Again, that documentary was about misinformation, but that documentary was misinforming a whole nation. See, the problem is, ladies and gentlemen, is in my opinion, based on the evidence that we have, including the documentary itself, there's no proof that Jay went to that Airbnb alive.
Wax Unfiltered has some very good points about the Channel 4 Jay Slater documentary. So many contradictions and missing evidence.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are back again with what we can only call one of the most highly anticipated reactions of 2025, the Jay Slater documentary. But there are things in the documentary that clearly prove that they didn't investigate this case. They literally took Brandon's story, Lucy's story, Abe's story, plus Jay's phone data, which can be easily manipulated because someone else could have had Jay's phone, which is a part of my theory. I always believed that someone else had Jay's phone, and the person I believe had Jay's phone was Lucy. She was the person filming Abe in the back of the car, Brandon sitting in the passenger seat, those three in the car together going to the Airbnb, and that's when the fabrication started happening from there. After Lucy put that video in a WhatsApp group saying that Jay's just stolen a Rolex and he's en route with this Somali kid to sell it for 10 quid, that was the moment Abe knew he had to become the face of the case. But what they then decided to do was make the second version. I'm with 2 Somali kids, and I've just stolen an AP this time. Oh yeah, no one questioned how sus that was right there. No one. Oh yeah, we'll ignore that. We won't put that in the documentary, we'll ignore that. Wasn't Mark Williams Thomas the first person to spread misinformation? What misinformation was he spreading? Stolen Rolex, which I told everyone months and months and months ago is fake. That never happened because they created that scenario in the back of the car, pretending to be Jay and pretending that he had stolen a Rolex. They wanted to create mass distraction. They wanted to create multiple different conspiracies because they needed mass distraction. And the stolen Rolex was another one. I'll tell you the next one. 2 knives stuffed down his trousers. Who told the world about that? Was it us? Was it content creators? No, it was Mark Williams Thomas. See, it's funny that you don't want to mention Mark Williams Thomas's name, but who is the one that brought Abe Qasim to our attention? Who released Abe Qasim to the media? Who put his picture out to the media? Mark Williams Thomas. It took 20 days for us as a public to know who the 2 mystery men were. In fact, we didn't even get to know who the second one was. We only got to find out about Abe Qasim after 20 days. But guess what? These are all friends. These guys are all at Magic Mike's having food at 6 o'clock in the morning. Jay's having a chicken burger, Brad's eating this and that, and Lucy's eating this and that. They've got a picture of Jay smiling in the back of the car. Why wasn't that shown on week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, week 5, week 6, week 7, week 8, week 9? Why didn't you show it to us on the podcast? Why didn't Debbie know about that picture prior to that podcast? Why did it take all the way until the final inquest? Not the first one, the final one. We've never heard about Magic Mike's before. Never. Abe's been talking online for months and months and months. Over a year, Abe has been online trying to tell us his side of the story. Why Jay went to the Airbnb, X, Y, and Z. Do you think he's ever mentioned Magic Mike's? There's only one point of his story where he mentions a pit stop, collecting kebabs with him, Jay, and Rocky, and going back to the Airbnb. All of a sudden, Abe mentions Magic Mike's at the inquest. Then all of a sudden, who comes out and backs Magic Mike's? Lucy! Lucy comes out and backs Magic Mike's, and she mentions, oh yeah, we was at Magic Mike's. But hold on, Lucy, you told us that you left alone and went home by yourself. Abe, Brandon, Lucy, they've always been one. They always knew Abe. They told Mark Williams Thomas his name was Johnny. They met him through the coffee shop. That was just the easiest thing to slip off both of their tongues because they knew Abe was associated to the coffee shop, the pot of paper shop. It then brings us to Jay's bank account, doesn't it? The Santander Bank. Why was it frozen? Oh, the documentary didn't want to talk about that. Yeah, it didn't want to talk about why Jay's bank account was frozen. It didn't want to talk about why Brandon sent Jay a message half an hour after his bank declined for 2 payments saying, can you get me that £200 out of your account? Why is Jay getting Hodgie £200 out of his account for? How is Jay, who allegedly had no money, affording to get £200 out of his account for Hodgie? Make it make sense. Oh, but they don't want to talk about that in the documentary. No, we'll leave that out. We'll leave that out. We'll leave that out. Yeah, well, that's what we'll do. The documentary had one agenda, and the agenda is to try and silence content creators, the people that try to help. Now, I'm not going to justify everyone's actions or content because there are some content creators out there that were spreading some wild conspiracies. I am the one that's debunked every single conspiracy out there. including the ones that the friends created. My theory is based on facts and facts only. The information is there. If people are scared to look at the information, if people are scared to want to investigate this because they don't know where it's going to take them, it might take them somewhere dark. It might take them to a place where 3, 4, maybe 5, maybe 6 people, even people in government might get bagged. Oh, it's a problem. Another thing that I found out, ladies and gentlemen, is that when Lucy first called Debbie to tell her about the situation with Jay, it took place at 3:30 in the afternoon. But they claimed they knew Jay was in a serious situation when they was on the phone to him that morning. He actually sent them his screenshots, his location. But did they go there? No, they didn't go there. No, they didn't go there. What Lucy done, Lucy called Debbie at 3:30 in the afternoon. And in that same call, she tried to vouch for Ayub and Rocky immediately. Oh yeah, we found the Airbnb and there was 2 Englishmen there. And then Lucy had the audacity to tell the world that they're 2 strangers and that Jay met them that night. Jay met them that night. And now all of a sudden, no, we've been spending a couple of days with them and oh, you liars, you're liars. When Lucy said what she said, they didn't know where they were going with the story. But then if Jay was cut by a cactus, lying in a ditch, felt like he was going to die, according to what Lucy was saying on day 1, why did you not go straight to the location? How can you tell Debbie at 3:30 in the afternoon, 6 hours later, Jay's been gone for 6 hours, and you're phoning Debbie at 3:30 in the afternoon to say that Jay's gone missing, I found the house that they were staying at. The 2 guys that were there, yeah, they're more or less okay. I mean, the whole link up between Lucy and Lena Patel, that's more or less all happens before Lucy's even told Debbie about this. That doesn't make any sense. Really, when you think about it, that doesn't make any sense. How is that possible? How have you gone on social media, promoted that this kid's missing, and Debbie doesn't even know? You're only phoning her at 3:30 that afternoon. So again, in that first phone call from Lucy to Debbie, she's already vouching for Ayub and Rocky because she's saying that she found the house. But in the media, she's calling them strangers. And she's saying that Jay met them. Yeah, Jay met them. Not me, not Brandon, not Brad. Jay met them and Jay went off with them. I don't know what Jay was thinking. Jay was just losing his brain. Behind the scenes, she's telling Mark Williams Thomas she had a 2-knife theory. Yep, I believe that. If Josh said it, even though we don't know Josh, I believe it, yeah. She's really pushing a nefarious type of agenda to Mark Williams Thomas and people behind the scenes. And then to the media, she's painting it out that she knows nothing about what happened that day. She knows nothing. But at the inquest, you're talking about linking up at Magic Mike's and everyone being there. And the only person that doesn't actually confirm Magic Mike's is who? Brad. Brad's the only person that doesn't mention anything about Magic Mike's. He doesn't mention anything about having food around 5 or 6 o'clock. Lucy does. Ayub does, but Brad doesn't. In fact, according to Brad, which was also mentioned in the inquest, around 5:30 in the morning, that's when Jay had video called him through Snapchat telling him he's going to be staying at the black guy's house at 5:30 in the morning. But where is Brad at that point if they're all at Magic Mike's together? Because Lucy says Brad was there. Now, if they're all saying this on the same day, tell me how the barrister is not questioning this. Brad, sorry, we're gonna have to get you back on the stand because you're saying that Jay said at 5:30 he's going to stay at this black guy's house. And he said that through a video call to you. But they said to us around 6 o'clock is when they went to Magic Mike's. So the documentary will then move on to the blanket photo as their defense. But have they not compared the trainers being worn in the blanket photo to the trainers that Jay was found in? The ones that Warren showed us on the camera? As I said from day 1, they're not the same trainers. How is the camera picking up all of the detail of the blanket to the point where we can determine that's the same blanket that was in Lucy's apartment, but it can't pick up the detail of Nike TNs that have shiny material on the front of them and it has clear white on the trainers? And there's so many red flags and contradictions, ladies and gentlemen, it's unbelievable. Biggest red flag of them all is that Jay never did that. Jay never took no videos or pictures of himself whilst he was in the mountains. Not one. Otherwise, they would have put it in a documentary. But one thing I know I just forgot to mention is the trainers. See, the t-shirt, which people are questioning at this moment in time, is dirty. You can see that there's dirt on the back of the t-shirt, but there's no rips. I couldn't see any rips, like rips from a fall, but we didn't see the full t-shirt, to be fair. And people online are saying, well, how did they take the t-shirt off of Jay? How did they take it off of him? Was he found with no t-shirt on? Was the t-shirt just next to him? Bearing in mind, the last footage we saw of Jay, officially, he's wearing no t-shirt. Anyhow, the trainers. When Warren showed us the trainers, The trainers were clean. Those trainers were still sealed in the bag, which means I doubt Warren or Debbie would have washed the trainers. So why was Jay's trainers looking so pristine? Like say he hadn't walked through a ravine, a dusty, dirty ravine for 2.5 hours. This is Jay in tramps, allegedly, at 3:07 in the morning. Now let's just quickly give ourselves a timeline. We've got this picture here of Jay being kicked out of Papagayo's at, let's say, 1:10. Now we can now see Jay talking to the security guard, and in this moment the security guard looks like he's pointing Jay to go a certain way. After that, we don't see Jay. You have to ask yourself at this point, where's the friends? Brad claims at the inquest that he went outside to try and get Jay back in, but they weren't letting Jay back in. So what did Brad decide to do? Oh yeah, I'll leave Jay outside and I'll go back in by myself. Make it make sense. So Jay's been kicked out, and after that, there's no footage of Jay whatsoever. Now look at the timestamps. Jay gets kicked out at 1:10. All of a sudden, Jay sends Lucy a message at what time? 2:40. And the message says, I've been kicked out and I can't get back in. Now you've got to think to yourself, why would Jay be texting Lucy that 1.5 hours after he's been kicked out? Where's he been for 1.5 hours? Keep listening, ladies and gentlemen, stick with me here. Jay sends that message to Lucy, and if we look at the timestamps, Lucy responds 9 minutes later. So now Jay's by himself for another 9 minutes. You've got to think to yourself, what's he doing for 9 minutes? Is he just staring at his phone for 9 minutes? What's he doing for 9 minutes? The reason I say that is to say this. Jay responds to Lucy within 30 seconds. So it took Lucy 9 minutes to respond to Jay, but Jay responds to Lucy within 30 to 60 seconds of Lucy sending that message. It brings you back to, where has Jay been for 1.5 hours? Lucy then says, I'll come down and get you if you come home. Weirdly, because Lucy, you wasn't at home, was you? You were still on the strip. You were with Brandon. So what are you trying to imply in that message? I'll come down and get you if you come home. It kind of indicates that Jay is not in the right place, and I would rather you be at home than outside. But this is where, ladies and gentlemen, the fabrication starts. The missing 1.5 hours, in that space of time, whatever's happened to Jay has happened. The documentary can only show us one screenshot at 3:07 of Jay allegedly in tramps. Now, ladies and gentlemen, hold on tight, because we're almost there. Remember what Isla Traqueer told us, and what various other people told us. Most of the guys in Tenerife look the same. Remember her telling us that? She said when she got on the airplane, she said most of the teens on there looked like Jay Slater, who had the same haircuts, they all dressed the same. So when you're there on the ground in these nightclubs, you think you're gonna see Jay everywhere because there's multiple people over there that look like Jay. So tell me how, ladies and gentlemen, if this is the only screenshot from tramps at 3:07, tell me how they was able to identify Jay through this grainy image. How was they able to identify Jay through this grainy image? I mean, I look at this image and I can't see Jay. I can't say in confidence, yes, that is Jay. I can't say in confidence it is Jay. I can't. And neither can you. And neither can anyone else. Because there's multiple people in this screenshot that look like they could be Jay. So this is no proof of Jay being alive at 3:07 in tramps. And I'm also going to prove that this is another potential lie based on statements that were given at the last inquest. Because if this is Jay at tramps at 3:07, it means that Jay would have been in 2 places at once. And what do I mean by that? Well, let's get into this part of the inquest. And I don't understand how the documentary people were there, Warren, Debbie, the barrister, they were all sitting there, putting together a documentary, listening to statements at an inquest, and didn't realize this massive red flag contradicts what you've just published in your documentary, because they claim that Jay was in tramps at 3:07, although it's really difficult to identify if that's Jay or not. But here we have Ayub saying Jay was inhaling gas from a balloon outside Sugar Reef, okay? Outside Sugar Reef. When that club closed at 4 a.m., so that club closed at 4 a.m. In the early hours of June the 17th, the group, so no specific names, the group, the gang, the Burnley crew clearly moved to nearby club called Tramps. Wasim said they were there until 5 pushing 6. before going to Magic Mike's for food, which means they was at Magic Mike's at around 6, half 5. Lucy claims that Brad was there, but then Brad says that Jay phoned him at 5:30 via Snapchat to say that he's staying at the black guy's house. But the massive contradiction here, ladies and gentlemen, is that the documentary claims that Jay was in Tramps at 3:07, but Ayub claims that they were at Sugar Reef until 4 a.m. when it closed, and then they went to Tramps. So how the hell was Jay in Tramps at 3:07 if he was outside Sugar Reef sucking balloons until 4 a.m? How? And then you was there till 5 or 6 before you went to Magic Mike's. Seems like someone was trying to force the narrative. The documentary painted us one story, but if you listen to the story, ladies and gentlemen, it wasn't a story that was created by the Guardia Civil, because they wasn't involved in the documentary. It wasn't a story that was created by Mark Williams Thomas, because he wasn't involved in the documentary. It wasn't a story that involved the Coast Guard, who initially claimed that they heard about the tip-off and that something happened on the Saturday morning or Saturday night, and there were question marks around that weekend basically. But no, we're not going to hear from the Coast Guard. No, we're not going to get their side of the story. No, in fact, we're not even going to get any new perspective on any of the friends. We're not going to reach out to the friends a whole 12 months later. Brad, how do you feel? Give us your side of the story again. Lucy, how do you feel? Give us your side of the story again. Brandon, how about you talk to us this time, because you've disappeared. You don't even want to come to the inquest, and Jay's meant to be your friend. In fact, you're the last official person I see with my son. Brandon can hide. Brandon don't need to go to an inquest. He doesn't need to go to 2 inquests. He can just give you a story which is the same story as Lucy. He can just give you a story that corroborates Ayub being innocent. Jay left the Airbnb. Yeah, I can tell you that. The last time I spoke to Jay was on the road. He was actually on the road just before he went off-road. Wow, they all spoke to him just before he went off-road. I just want to let you know though, he went off-road. Yeah, he went off-road. He didn't turn back then. To a degree, ladies and gentlemen, I've proved in this video that the misinformation was being spread by the friends, by Mark Williams Thomas, by people they did not include in this documentary.
Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. Thanks to Wax Unfiltered for sharing his thoughts. Please take the time to visit his channel.